Hi, everybody. Welcome to this. I've forgotten the name of the event. That's a good start, isn't it? Organising comics. That's what it is. Well done. Yep, great. It's kind of like I suppose, like a spiritual successor to the events of last year. I'm not sure if anybody came along to those, but so the story so far is that last year I ran a survey of people creating comics to see how we're doing. Who's making comics? How are we doing it? How are we doing? Are we doing well? What obstacles do we face? Are we overcoming those obstacles? And this survey took place in spring of. Obviously, you all know this because you've all filled in the survey. Thank you for your time. And the results came out and quite bad. Apparently, we're not doing great. I think it's fair to say. So there was a series of follow-up online discussions to chat about how does this make you feel as a comics creator that we're not doing so great. And each of these there were 5 different discussions, and they were focused on. Well, first was an overview. Then there was a chat on the lack of money and the lack of access and the lack of audience and the lack of professionalism in comics. And actually, considering how dark they could have been, they were quite positive, I think, pretty much. And so after that there was a very good write-up written by Katrina Chapman, which sort of summarized everything that was said and discussed. And all of this stuff can be found. I'm going to put a link in the chat just here. It's hannahberry.co.uk/survey. There we go. And you can find both the bleak report and the nice, cheerful, optimistic write-up on the same page. So this is sort of a year on. What's changed? And so I'm joined by my. Shall I introduce you guys, or do you want to introduce yourselves? Do you have
us?
Please introduce us.
Oh yeah.
Allow me to introduce my panelists. We've got Jennie Gyllblad, I've been calling Gyllblad incorrectly for many years, who is a comics creator and Twitch.
Yes, yeah, creative Twitch streamer as well.
Creative Twitch streamer, and is also the co-founder of the Association of Comics Creators, which aims to uplift and empower creators by encouraging transparency.
Yes, in the comics industry.
In the comics industry. I have trouble with that word.
We're making us all talk to one another and share knowledge with each other in a safe space.
Yes.
Away from the public social media, which is good in a way, but it's not great for every kind of discussion. No, there's some things that should remain behind closed doors. Yes, definitely. Up, isn't it? So secretive. Also on my panel is Nyla Ahmad, who's a comics affiliate. Not a creator, an affiliate who is. Were you the co-founder of Glasgow Comic Con? Because that's how I came to know you.
No.
The co-runner, the co.
I did work with BHP, who run Glasgow Comic Con. I mainly focused on the SICBAs, which was the Scottish Independent Comic Book Alliance Awards. And I co-led the BHP Comics Project Full Colour, which was a mentoring scheme for 14 to 26-year-old young BAME creators who wanted to get into comics. And that culminated in a graphic anthology, which I edited.
Excellent. So comics affiliated. You created comics. You've edited, therefore. You currently work for the Scottish Book Trust. And you previously worked for the Glasgow Women's Library?
Yes, I did. I worked on a project called Equality in Progress, which examined barriers to access in the museum sector.
So perfect for this situation. And I've also got Dan Berry, who is comics creator and educator.
Capital E, educator. Freelance rogue educator.
Yeah, and you're still educated. Do we go into your CV of where you've educated before, or do we just say you're available for?
I've just been teaching in Denmark. I came back a week ago.
Oh, cool.
I love those days.
As a Scandinavian.
Well, I mean, Sweden's great. But these Danes, come on.
No. We won't go there.
So anyway, just to just to quell these stormy Baltic waters. So I'm a comic artist. I ran a degree course in comics for 11 years. So a lot of my sort of expertise, I think, here today is going to be talking about education, because that's what I did with most of my adult life. But I'm also a comic creator. I run a podcast. I make typefaces and things like that as well.
And
Just
Dan
stuff.
and Nyla are like myself are both on the committee for the
Oh,
the Society of Authors' newly founded Comics Creators Network, which is a professional support network for all types of comics creators in the UK. The Society of Authors are the UK's largest trade union for authors and writers and illustrators. So people who are thinking that people who are artists in comics and think they can't join this, think again. You can join.
You can author a picture.
Yeah, exactly. They offer members free professional and legal advice, contract vetting, which I love, my favorite thing, tax helpline, sexy, and various membership discounts, including specialist insurance. They've just added some public liability insurance for a tenner, which is...
I believe they also offer a bit of help with Brexit-related issues, perhaps.
Possibly, because I got legal expert advice.
Yeah, because I think we talked about that before, and that just popped into my head, and I was like, oh God, Brexit. Which is it's all very sort of UK focused. Like, how do we deal with all of this new red tape? I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, this additional postage, all this sovereignty. How do we deal with this?
Yes, it feels great.
Yeah,
I love it.
So good. Such good times. So and they also run some events. So I should plug the next event, which is chaired by Dan, I think, isn't it? Yep. Next Wednesday. It's called Breaking Up is Hard to Do. I should put a link in the thing, but I haven't. It's not easy to type. So just Google Society of Authors Breaking Up is Hard to Do, and it's all about what happens what to do when your relationship with your publisher
goes bad,
and you need some help in how to get the hell away from that.
Is there a panel, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a panel discussion with, I think, Patrice Aggs is on it.
Yep.
Awesome. Veteran.
And I have read the notes and I have forgotten everything.
Well, I really
thanks for
need
putting
to
me on the
that
spot.
Sounds amazing.
I see my role as asking really dumb questions.
That was my role. I'm chair. Shut down. Anyway, so so the last couple of years, so we sort of established that after these discussions, there's not a huge amount in terms of professional support for comics creators. And then the last sort of year and a half has very helpfully, I think, stress tested the entire quote unquote industry. Thanks COVID, thank you Brexit. It's good to, just to really be run through that mill, just to find out where the problems are, just to wring any last, drips of words, apparently, any sort of last drips of hope out of that. So my joyful first question I was going to ask you guys, how has the last year and a half been for you in the comics industry? Have you noticed any sort of profound changes in the way things have been working, or in the work that you've been offered or not offered, or doing or not doing?
In terms of actual publishing and books coming from the end of my pen onto someone's desk, onto their bookshelf, much slower. I had a book that's come out this week, Rivers with Top Shelf, co-written with David Gaffney, and it was just kind of glacially slow. Obviously there was a shipping crisis, which kind of had a knock-on effect to everything else, but just slow. Very, very slow. Wasn't much fun.
Yeah. On like the opposite way for me, because I'm on the self-published kind of indie gutter trash section of the comics
how
industry.
I think of you. Yes.
I'm down in the gutter most of the time. I found like
of you too.
I just found like during COVID, because it's made us even more isolated than before, and I feel like I've been in the industry now, working in the industry for a decade, and it's been pretty isolating, you know, before the bad time started, because you're essentially doing everything on your own most of the time in your studio. But with COVID happening, we were all very much just shut in even more. And you'd think that that would be, you know, really bad all around. And don't get me wrong, COVID's bad, but like it's really bad. I'm not trying to say COVID was great,
COVID
but
is bad. Okay.
but in terms of people wanting to suddenly buy a whole bunch of comics, or back comics on Kickstarter that have to do with smut, COVID was just like, for me personally, like I have never been so busy as when COVID happened. So like in a way, I guess people needed entertainment because no one was leaving their house. So that was good. But that's also a lot of digital media was totally fine because we weren't having to deal with the shipping crisis or anything else Brexit related, really. So anything like purely digital, I on a personal level found was actually kind of great. But in terms of like AoCCC levels, like when we started that, oh my God. I mean, we started the AoCCC at the same time, pretty much as you guys started CCN.
You were a little bit before us.
A little bit before, okay. So this was in the beginning of COVID, where everything was pretty, you know, new and kind of, you know, scary and stuff. Now everyone's kind of getting used to it, but also in a weird way. It's the whole thing. And yeah, I just, with AoCCC, I just found that like in the beginning, it was very spicy. I was trying to find the correct word to use because everyone was kind of going crazy at home and everyone was dealing with a lot of stresses in the industry. And then we kind of come along very frustrated as well because we are created by comic creators for other comic creators. So like we are in the industry, we kind of feel you because we're feeling it as well. And we're here going, let's try to fix it somehow. And suddenly we have a lot of people coming in very quickly, coming like, oh my God, there's a possible solution. And like, honestly, I can say the first couple of weeks, Fef is one of the co-founders, is in chat, and I'm sure they'd agree that the first couple of weeks were stressful because we were only on Discord at this point, and basically community management is a job because you had to deal with a lot of people who were very stressed, and you have to moderate a lot of people and try to sort of set ground rules because everything was very, very new. And then as we progressed over the year, everything is very much sort of calmed down and people are kind of getting into, you know, how things work. We are getting used to how things work. We're kind of slowly getting things going, which I can talk about a lot more in a bit, like our website and things like that. But yeah, now I feel like it's a really amazing time to be joining us if you would like to, by the way. I can put links and stuff in chat in a bit.
A little link in the chat.
Yeah, I could put some links and stuff in chat. But yeah, I think now is a fantastic time to be joining us if you're curious about it, because now especially the waves have settled and we, dare I say, we kind of know a bit more what we're doing now.
Don't jinx it.
Oh God, touch wood. But yeah,
that's really interesting to hear because I just sort of wouldn't have. That's not what I would have expected, and that's kind of, it's kind of nice that you sort of found this groove and a kind of things are sort of ticking along in this new, like, solely online world.
Yeah, I think it's great, but also it has its own challenges if you're going to be solely online and suddenly. I think especially with comics in general, the reason why it's so difficult to organize is because it is such an international thing. So, you know, you have people in the UK who want to work with publishers in the US, and you have different legal things in different countries. And you have people who maybe work solely online, and then you'll have to deal with legal stuff with online platforms, which I could rant about for literally hours, but we're not going to go there unless people ask. And if you want to make it really difficult, you could try doing smut comics. That's another thing. You also have like people who are now doing, this is a new thing, people doing web comics full-time as a job. And now like they might be completely connected to a webcomic platform, and like the power imbalance there as well. Like our web comic platforms now as powerful as traditional publishers. Like it's a completely new world being online. So in one way it's amazing because like the opportunities are incredible. I couldn't do my job if the internet didn't exist. Like it just wouldn't work. But also at the same time, it is the Wild West. So that's why I feel like the AoCCC really helps people who are, especially, it's like a ground floor thing. We help people who are coming into the industry and people who are kind of not sure how certain things work online and, you know, anywhere. And we can just gather our knowledge together and help each other out. I'm always available if people want to chat about anything about making money on the internet, because that's what I do.
A popular topic.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can ask Nyla, because you've got Nyla, you've got more of a good bird's eye view of all of publishing, right? Within the Scottish Book Trust. I mean, how does traditional publishing, is that sort of has it over the last year taken a big knock? And like, have you seen any kind of effects on comics publishing?
So yeah, I think it's kind of interesting for me for sort of like, because I work on programming literary events, and it's been really interesting to kind of see the push towards digital events and things like that happening last year, and also how that compares from last year to this year. I know that book sales did go up, I believe, last year. And sort of from a comics perspective, I think from a really personal perspective, it's kind of interesting for me. So, and at the end of 2019, prior to that, I had caring responsibilities. I was finishing a master's degree. There was a lot of stuff going on. So 2020 was going to be my year to get to events, to be really social, to make connections, to kick myself up the butt and do some proper writing and some creating and actually make that time for myself. And then COVID hit, and I just, but also on the flip side, there's been some really interesting things happening because I'm in Scotland. I've actually been able to take on some tutoring opportunities that I maybe would not have been able to do. So I was able to speak to Kieran Gillen with the Society of Authors, which was really, really great. And I was able to do that from my living room, from where you are seeing me right now. So on one hand, I felt not very connected from the very sort of social aspect, but on the other hand, I felt quite connected in the people that I can reach and the people that I can talk to, and even getting involved in the events that you did before, Hannah, which is why I'm here, because I gate crashed one of them holding a spatula. I maybe wouldn't have been able to come to that if it wasn't an online event.
Yeah, I mean the I've got to say that was because I planned that entire thing before COVID hit, and the plan was to have one in-person discussion event in London, because it's close to me. And also there was quite a nice big venue I could hire for the cheap dish.
Yeah,
and it was like that was the original plan, and then COVID hit, and so I had to go online. And once everything was set up online, I thought, why did I even consider doing? Why do we do these events in person? I mean, some things need to be in person, like certain festivals and things, but certainly discussion events. There's kind of once you get into it, it's sort of hard to go back the other way now. It's like that. I quite like this. I mean, I was going to say sense of community, looking at all these faces, but it's just everyone's face is just like. But look at all your names. I feel like a sense of community, I guess. I mean, so what? So you're talking about the first year of the Association of Comics Creators, Jennie. Dan and Nyla, how do you feel? We've not really had a first year yet. How do you feel our first few months have gone? Because we've only when was the steering committee set up? Was it the start of this year?
You're asking me to remember like dates and things, and time doesn't work that way.
Time doesn't work anymore because of
We've only had a few meetings anyway.
It was sometime in the past that it happened. That's as close as I can land it. Yeah, I think it's going pretty well. I mean, obviously it's still early days, but I feel like all of the meetings we've had have been productive and useful. It's nice to be able to talk to people who know what normal is, because I think in comics we have an idea about what normal is based on either meeting people in a bar or talking on Twitter for the most part. And then, you know, you meet people who've worked in publishing for decades, and they understand what a contract should look like and what normal should look like. And we come up with our weird sort of version of normal. I can't think of a good version of like how to describe it, but this version of normal that really isn't normal. And they're looking at us like, you do what? Why do you do that? And we're like, I'm sorry, it's just normal. We just do that.
Yeah.
Sorry. And then they tell us to not do that anymore, and it's nice.
I've found it really useful for sort of as a way to point people towards hopefully a better standard and a better industry. And I think that thinking about things like fair pay and contracts and respect and dignity being given to creators really answers a lot of questions that I feel other parts of my career have been trying to answer, of sort of looking at eradicating barriers to access, of looking at how do we get more people of colour in the industry. And I think a massive part of that is ensuring that there is respect, dignity, fair pay, that this isn't just sort of a representation of people coming into this industry and then that's it, fine. It's actually fixing the industry so that it's a hospitable place where everybody can thrive, not just exist. So I found it excellent to be involved with it, and I really think that it connects some dots that need to be connected.
I feel like one of our biggest challenges is just letting everybody know what our rights are, what the gold standard is, you know, how you can expect to be treated.
I keep on like thinking about Stephanie Cook's creator resource that I'm sure I've talked about a lot. Whenever I'm on a panel talking about industry pay or money, I will always keep on going, please go to Stephanie Cook's creator resource. In fact, I am going to link it in chat right now. It is amazing work from Stephanie, and I believe she did it all on her own, which is just like mind-blowing. So she was tracking how much the page rates were in the comic book industry. And the way it worked was that people could submit anonymously to this like a massive survey. And then she just did a lot of data crunching. And then you have, well, you can go have a look and don't be too depressed. Well, and also the other thing is that, speaking about not getting too depressed, I believe she had to stop doing it in 2017. But so people might be saying, oh God, well, that's not going to be very accurate anymore. Well, I don't want to make people too sad, but at the same time, I do feel like we have to be quite honest here. One of my very, very good friends, who is also a 32-year freelance veteran in the comic industry, he has worked for like pretty much, in his words, all of the publishers. So like he knows all of them, basically. And he says that he's been doing all this stuff for 32 years, and the page rates have not gone up since the 90s, bar from maybe in the big two. In fact, some of the page rates have gone down since the 90s. And I'm just like, that's awful. I was trying not to swear. That is a disgusting thing. Like that, we can't have that be a thing, because it's not, like, people can't live off that. And like, people need to realize that making comics like is a skilled job, and you have to be compensated for that. So I think one of the ways to do it is to actually have the pay be more transparent, so that people can see and then be suitably enraged and frustrated by it. And then hopefully we can then drive for some change, because people don't seem to realize it, especially like if you're not in the industry, people don't seem to realize that a lot of the people who made some of your favorite characters, they're not rich, and that's pretty sad. So yeah, sorry to be very sad.
No, we're here to be brutal and blunt.
Yeah,
that's why we're here. That's our main role. I mean, I think that it feels just like it feels like an uphill battle with. Look, I don't want to get into capitalism, but it feels like there's always going to be in the creative world, it feels like it's always going to be a struggle, because there's always the desire to make things cheaper and cheaper. And because we're so enthusiastic about the work that we do, you know, that we're kind of not willing to be squeezed, but you know, there's always more and more people that want to make comics, and so like the enthusiasm is almost used as currency against us, and you know, we end up sort of paying the price.
It kind of reminds me again of a quote from I think it's the Dirty Old Ladies podcast. That's not going on anymore. It's about smutty comics. I'm really sorry, but the quote is comics is an industry that eats its young. And basically, I know, but like I do feel like a lot of the time, because I've seen this, that a lot of young people or people who are new come into the industry, you know, with big sparkly eyes, and then they take contracts and take on things because they just want to make comics and they're so excited. And I get it, trust me. And then just don't really have anyone to ask that maybe the contract they're about to sign isn't great. Then they get overworked and they burn out, and then they leave the comics industry. They become something else that actually pays them money. So for example, like an illustrator or a graphic designer, or something that actually like respects them maybe. So like, yeah, it's one of those things where if we could just have a space where people could come in, people who are new to the industry, they're just making the first comic book, and they can come in and they can be like, hey, so this company online approached me and they were like, we want you to make this comic for us. Maybe it's like something along the lines of Tapas's incubator program. Google that if you want. And they go, I would love to do this. This sounds great. Before you sign it, just come into the little space, AoCCC, or, you know, CCN, whatever, and be like, hey, what you people, can you just look at this contract or what the people have said here? Does this sound okay? Would you do this? And if someone is pressuring you to sign something very quickly, that's a big red flag. Don't do it.
We have a sort of an informal agreement between the AoCCC and the CCN, where we basically, because I think not obviously the AoCCC has a broader or a bigger membership, I think, because it's
international,
it's free, but also it's you know, it's just you don't have to sort of subscribe to a thing, and you know, I get that there's not much money in comics, so we have and also I think it's something you can it's something you can sign up with at the very beginning of your career, where you might not be eligible for Society of Authors membership.
Yeah, so just see us as like your first stepping stone.
Yeah, so we sort of have this agreement where if there's issues that are being raised, if there's something which is like an industry problem, which is, you know, being flagged up by the people who are being most, you know, immediately affected by it, so people new to the industry in particular, then that can be maybe passed to the Society of Authors, and maybe we in the CCN can pass it to the big people in the Society of Authors, who can crush it, destroy it. We should we mention Nobrow?
Yes,
oh, please do. I was here sitting, I was waiting, I'm trying any excuse.
Everybody gather round, sit, make yourself comfortable. So you might all remember there was a bit of a situation on Twitter where I think it was when they cancelled LCAF, and people were concerned about them doing it online, but still taking the same table rates, the table charge. And then following that, there's a big outpouring of people saying, well, actually, you know, they took advantage of me because of this happened with my contract, this happened with this happened. And what would have been sort of an open secret for a long time just bubbled up to the surface in a big angry boil. And a few people contacted the Society of Authors, myself included, but Woodrow Phoenix specifically, he was on I think he's just leaving the chair, the board of the Society of Authors now, unfortunately, but he is also on the committee of the Comics Creators Network. But he brought this to the Society of Authors and said, this is something that you should probably be looking at. And so the Society of Authors very, very nicely, very quietly said, hey, Nobrow, what's this?
What are you doing?
And they said, nothing. And they said, I think it's something. Is it something? What have you got behind your back there? And there was a long, apparently very friendly discussion, at the end of which Nobrow agreed to release creators from contracts where they were not happy, where the creators were not happy, They agreed to reassess terms which were apparently illegal and should not have been done in the first place. And most importantly, they agreed to, I can't remember the amount. I'm going to say £160,000.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a lot of money.
Yeah, a huge amount of money, which is £600,000. There was a six in it. There's a lot of money, and
a lot of money.
Sorry,
I said a lot of money.
A lot of so much money. They agreed to distribute this to to their creators who had been shortchanged with their royalties, as had been highlighted by the Society of Authors. So it pays to have a union. It pays to be part of the union. And where we're used to just being shat upon by publishers in comics, we don't have to have that anymore. We can say, you know, this is not standard procedure. I don't need to put up with this nonsense. Let me pass you to my union. Don't have to say it in such, you know, confrontational way. You can if you like. I don't think that they're not especially confrontational. I can't sing enough praises for their contract vetting. They've got me out of so many scrapes all from the beginning of my career. I've got an agent, but I still use the Society of Authors to vet my contracts and say this clause, that's not good. This thing, this is not industry standard. You could change it to this. And that kind of knowledge and know-how it's worth the entry fee. It's been so invaluable to. Oh, I'm just tearing up.
It was 160,000, by the way. I just had to look up. £160,000.
I knew I had a six.
Yeah.
£6 billion.
Wow, it's amazing.
But going back a bit, I don't know if is there any way to sort of to catch people before, like from a student age, from the very beginning age, to get people before they get into these situations, because I'm very aware that I think, like Nyla, there are people who are, I'm looking for a word other than predating and coming up short, that are keeping an eye out, looking especially for people who are very green in their careers and could be taken advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, it is in an industry where you want to make money, it makes sense to find young people who don't know what normal is yet and sign them up to contracts where you can make money from them and then move on to the next person. I remember, I mean, you know, on the Nobrow specifically, you know, they did a tour of all the illustration courses in the UK and sort of like, you'll come to do a book, you'll come to do a book. You know, that was a thing that happened a while ago. You know, with my sort of educator's hat on, you know, because this was a job I did for, you know, over a decade, you know, running an illustration department. I was always very, very aware that we were sending people out into the world of work to try and make money doing their thing, not just to draw pictures, but to try and actually pay the bills. So I was always, you know, keenly aware of every shortcoming that we made, because every time we didn't educate someone, I could see someone not paying their mortgage. That was how I tried to gauge, you know, the success of whether or not we managed to actually teach people how to do it.
That's quite a lot on your shoulders there.
Yeah, but it is serious. You know, I would take trying to educate people in the business, you know, not just, you know, here's how you write an invoice and, you know, here's how you ask for work, but also here's how you respond to an email. Here's how you break up with someone. Here's, you know, the intricacies of vocabulary that you can use and how you'd word something slightly differently that could turn a client against you. You know, all of like the tricky little details that you learn with experience. So I was very, you know, we'd go through and read contracts clause by clause to try and make sure that we understood what we were talking about. I don't do that anymore because education's a horrible place to work in the UK. So the difficulty is that was hard work, and it was based on a lot of my experience, you know, having done it myself and got it wrong. You know, I was bringing a lot of my failures into it and saying, hey, you know, Ghost of Christmas Future here, like big skeleton in a costume, like don't do this, I did this and it was bad. That was, you know, not much fun for me, you know, to sort of show off how ignorant I had been in the past. But, you know, you learn and you try and help other people as well. But that was an exceptional circumstance. So in the university I was working in, that was not every other course was doing that. You know, the way that the sort of the professional education was handled as well in a lot of other places that I've, you know, spoken to students, spoken to staff, is we'll get some guest speakers in to talk about, you know, their career, and that will fill up the students' brains with all the knowledge they'll need to go and be a freelancer.
That
which
sounds
is
like my actual university degree.
preposterous.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't fill you up with information.
No,
It just
no.
tells you what someone did once.
Yeah.
That there's no actual education there. You're just having air blown at you. There's no practical elements there in actually learning anything to do about business there. Maybe someone will say something like, get an accountant, and you'll go, oh, I'll get an accountant. It doesn't really work. But to be very, very cynical, in 2021, we've also just seen 50% cuts to arts education in the UK. So I can't imagine it's going to sort of spontaneously get better, because what are you going to do with half as much money now? So I don't see, university education spontaneously getting better at educating people coming in business. Also, the sort of prerequisites for teaching, as I was leaving, we wanted people who had a PhD and years of professional experience to be able to teach, which is, I started a PhD and I couldn't do it. There was no way I could be a professional illustrator and do a PhD and have children and a wife and maintain those relationships. Those are too many plates to keep spinning at the same time. So, the way that universities seem to measure value in staff is, do they have letters after their name? And that tends to be it. In which case, you're, in all likelihood, probably not going to be competing at a competitive, illustration comics level, and being able to then take that business knowledge and put it into your students. So I'm hugely cynical about the state of business education in arts courses in the UK. Hugely cynical.
Maybe it's best to, if things start to become more online focused in terms of teaching, especially the new generation coming into comics. And also it's more easily accessible. You don't have to do a degree. Doing a degree costs money and not everyone can afford to. So making it freely available on the internet and making sure that people see it. I personally believe that that's the way to really educate people. So that's why I always say you're having the pay being right there. It's this is how much you get if you work for these publishers, things like that, so that people can just literally for free instantly go and find out about these things. And especially it's so difficult with business, having to reading contracts and making an informed decision. That's very difficult to teach someone. Just
it's really boring.
And it is very boring, yes.
Many of us got into this because we like drawing, funny cats or butts or something. And it's reading a contract or trying to ask someone for money it's either really boring or it's mortifying. Give me £1,000. It catches in your throat and you want to be sick. I just want to draw butts. That's all I really want.
I think because it's so much fun. It's because we like doing it, drawing the cat butts. We can't asking for money for it. Just seems so wrong. I wonder if that's there's I don't know many comics people that work in comics and won't work to the point where it's grueling. And I think
don't go into comics to make money. It's a joke. The people.
Sorry, it took a little while for that sentence to actually sort of long fuse on that one.
It's not what you do. If you want to make money, I don't know, become a banker or something, do numbery things. But if you wanna make comics, it's all about you making the comics, you're drawing all of the butts, you're having a great time. But then the other side that you do have to deal with is the one where you have to look at the contracts and you have to look at all of the business shenanigans. And I think especially if you don't have an agent, and maybe if you don't have a publisher, maybe you're self-published, maybe you're completely solo and you're working online with a webcomic or something, it's so isolating. And I think that if we do have more people that can sort of come together and give each other just a helping hand, and especially having the private spaces where people can be hey, I have this thing that someone told me about the publisher. Is this good or bad? I don't understand. And then you have people who've been in the industry for a while coming in and actually giving you really good feedback. And it's not just publishers as well. Like in the AoCCC, for example, like I've got it open right here, so that's why I keep on glancing over there. But like we've got like channels for where we discuss things like comic shops and like conventions and charity events, and obviously the usual like money, law, adult comics, you know, if you want to talk that, I'm your girl. You know, and online platforms and all that stuff. But you know, everything to do with like collaborations and you know, work opportunities and anthologies, and how do you get funding. And we also have like the very private channels. So in case people don't know how it works, I don't feel like I actually explained it, in case people are completely new to what the AoCCC is. It is like a private Discord. So if you want to become a member, all we ask is that you are a comic creator. You could be working on your first comic, and that's totally fine. And you could just pop on in, and we just do a little quick verification to make sure that you are who you say you are, and then you're in. And then you have
you have to draw a bicycle.
Yeah, exactly. We have a test.
Going up the stairs.
We'll have a test. But yeah, and then you're in. But that once you're also in, we have even more sort of private channels. So for example, if someone comes in and they are not only an artist something, but they also kind of are an editor, or maybe they're a publisher or something, there are certain channels that they won't see. So we have like a publisher feedback channel that's private, and we have a convention feedback channel that obviously convention organizers can't see, so people can speak freely. And we also have even more private channels for people who are in marginalized groups. So for example, if you happen to be queer, like me, or you know, anything else, we have channels for that, where only people who identify the same way can chat to each other and speak freely about, you know, experiences at maybe conventions or online platforms or what have you. So like I think it's really good to have this free international space where people can get help and be educated. But the main thing is that we need to kind of get the word out about it and actually have people join to get the help, you know, that we say that we can give them, you know.
I'd like to say that butts have value.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think a lot of the stuff that I see, there's a sort of need for confidence building, but also a need of like feeling a sense of value towards comics. When you look at sort of the wider book trade, oftentimes comics are like the weird cousin that sits in the corner and like you don't really know what's going on with them. But that doesn't, like, it is a medium of huge value, and it's also a massive like industry, and it's hugely important, and that undervaluing can seep in, so people can think that they're lucky to be able to be involved. And you also see that in marginalized communities, it's really hard to be what you can't see, and it's really easy to internalize that you're lucky to have an opportunity that people like you generally don't get. And I think it's really important for people to understand that their work has value, their voice has value, and that if, you know, somebody really hints that they're doing you a favor, most likely they're gaining a lot from it. But also thinking about industry solidarity and rate transparency and ensuring that we're all uplifting each other. I mean, you can win a race to the bottom, but nobody really wins.
Oh, that's good. That's almost as good as butts have value.
Butts do have value. I think butts have value is my personal favorite phrase. If anybody wants to quote me on that, I think it encapsulates the other sentiments a bit better.
Butts have a lot of value, but you know, if no one will let you sell the butts, it becomes difficult. So
yeah, and that's an issue of gatekeepers as well.
Gatekeeping the butts.
Yeah, and who places value on what as well. I think like
to draw the butts.
What?
I think one of the, especially the last however many months it's been now, God knows, I think one of the big issues amongst comics creators seems to be health and mental well-being. And I feel like something that I mean, obviously it's not unique to comics creators, but because we work in isolation so much, and I feel like it's sort of related to us feeling like we are, like that general sense of unworthiness and that feeling that we making a comic itself is just too joyful. We need to work until the point of pain, to the pain, like in Princess Bride. We need to push it just to the point where it's really uncomfortable, and unfortunately that point often leads to burnout, which is no small thing. I was wondering if any of you had any thoughts on how our associations have helped with this, or how they could do more to help with that kind of with that particular situation. That's a bit of a big question.
That is difficult.
There is there's this weird kind of macho attitude in comics, like you got to pull all-nighters, page a day, got to that is really kind of destructive. I think that feeding your health and well-being onto the conveyor belt like of comics, and that's what essentially you're swapping for the comics is your health and well-being. And as someone who's been hospitalized with stress, and someone who's got like literally no fluid between the vertebrae in his neck right now, like it's not a good thing to swap your health, physical or mental, for comics, because it is just drawings. At the end of the day, it's just drawings. And I think if there's something valuable that's come out of the pandemic, I think people have realized that they can and should value their health more profoundly and more immediately. I know I have. That's been quite nice, to be selfish and go, actually, I'm taking the week off. That's been rather nice, actually.
I'm taking the week off to in order to not collapse in a heap at my desk.
Yeah. I'm going to go for a walk in the woods with my kids. It's going to be great. That sort of thing.
Get back to your desk.
Yeah, and I, one of the things that I think that I see changing, because I've been running the Make It Then Tell Everybody podcast for it'll be 9 years next month, which is wild. It's older than some of my children, one of my children. I think one of the things I've noticed in the themes and what I've spoken to people about is that people now, I think, are tending to be kinder to themselves. I think they have processes and working methods that value their health. I think I have no spreadsheet that proves this. This is a hunch and an inkling. I feel slightly better about it, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing about you're only really passionate about comics if you're working yourself until burnout. I find that is that was a mindset, the kind of like the hustle culture thing. That's a mindset that I had at uni. And whenever I'm now on Twitch, by the way, 4 times a week, in case you're curious, plug. But yeah, whenever I'm on Twitch, I have some people who are coming in who are sort of maybe a bit younger, and they're just like being like, oh yeah, I want to make comic books. And it's just like, oh, have you seen how much like people work on comics? And it's just like, oh, I need to be working every day all the time. And I'm just like, no. Let's calm down now, because like we don't need to perpetuate that thing. Like I had that when I was at uni, and everyone around me were complete workaholics. So it was just because I was around people who were like that, I feel it really spurred me on to become even worse, to the point where this is so embarrassing, but whatever.
I think we've all got these same stories.
To the point where and don't do this, by the way, but like we saw it as a badge of honor that you were passionate about your comics if you worked to the point where you couldn't hold the pencil anymore, so that you had to swap hands. And I don't remember who this was, but this was I think this was quite a famous concept artist at the time. I may be wrong, but they were basically, it was this whole thing that people said that they were so passionate that they drew until they couldn't use their hand, and then they drew with their other hand and they couldn't use that, so they tried to draw with their mouth. And we thought that was cool, and that was what you wanted to do, because that way senpai will notice you, the publisher will notice you and be like, wow, look how passionate they are. It's only because we're willing to break ourselves. Like, and now when I've gotten older, and also I have RSI, like I've realized that that's dumb. And when people come in and they kind of go, oh, wow, you must be working all the time. And I'm just like, yes, but also no, not anymore. I do take time off when I start feeling bad. I wouldn't do that. I didn't do that in the past, but I do that now. Whenever someone is doing the whole hustle-y craziness around me, I'm just like, let's take a step back. And I have noticed that actually a lot of people, like you said, actually, Dan, that a lot of people now seem to be going more towards actually taking care of themselves and like their mental health as well. And that's very promising, because especially with COVID happening, it's kind of been a weird reset. I kind of feel where people are just kind of going, okay, what actually really matters to me right now? And this is what we need to focus on. And, you know, maybe, I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen that. It went around on the comic Twitter probably a couple of years ago, but that the manga artist's schedule.
Oh, yeah. You may close your eyes for 14 minutes once a day. That's madness.
Oh, my God. Yeah. I don't have it to hand, so I can't share it. But like, I'm sure if you just Google famous mangaka schedule, you'll be able to find it. And basically, apparently that's like a normal schedule as well, which is just horrific. And apparently people are just like, yeah, but you know, in Japan, they take comics seriously there, and they're actually more well respected. And then you look at this scheduling and you're just like, oh.
Sorry? I feel like the sort of specifications on when comics are taken seriously move every bloody year. And I think as well, it's sort of dangling the carrot over, but if you really cared about this, you'd do this. If you really did this, you'd do this. And I think actually...
If you really loved me.
Yeah.
Right. And it was the same with me in academia. Dan as well. I wanted to get a PhD at one point, and I felt like I was never good enough. I was never capable enough. And that's, again, another way to undermine a person, so you can take complete and utter advantage of them. Also, like with comics and this idea of it's this sort of sacred, amazing thing that if you're lucky enough and you work hard enough, you can be involved with it and you can do these things. Comics should be for everyone. That is not what I want. I don't want to turn around in an industry and be like, well, you didn't work as hard as me, so your life needs to be harder. When we sort of make our lives easier, everybody's going to benefit from it. And I think that sense of it is really important. And it's really important to me in this idea of like, we are all in this together. When it comes to comics, like, you having an easier time making comics means it's more feasible for other people who want to make comics. And that identity of how comics are really hard and you don't make any money and things like that, as somebody who loves comics, oh my God, like, you know, comics are my whole heart. That feels like a barrier to me to access the industry, because I need to work full time. And if you want to tell my immigrant grandmother that I am giving up a full-time job to make comics and I've been told by a bunch of people, that's going to cause a big issue for me, and I'm not going to be financially stable, and I'm not going to feel secure, and I'm going to feel undervalued. That's a nightmare industry, and it feels paradoxical because comics are one of the most joyful things in my life.
There's a comment here in the chat about French comics creators. I know that in France they've been having a serious issue with the market. Essentially, what's happened is the market has been flooded with albums, as they're called, the individual comics, graphic novels, and because there's so many put out, creators are being given smaller and smaller advances, so they're having to produce effectively one album a year. So they're just churning out these albums in a bid to try and, you know, make a living, and it is not working. And there was actually a survey which was conducted by, I think it's by the Department of Culture, into the situation, and we found that it was bad, very bad. And because it was conducted by the Department of Culture, they were able to suggest some reforms to the industry, make some recommendations to publishers to try and alleviate the situation. And unfortunately, that's not, I believe that's not happened. And so there's been, I think the last Angoulême was, I think there was a strike, there was a boycott announced, because France is very good at organising. I don't know if you know this about France, but they do a mean strike. But they, I'm not sure where the situation is at now. I'm not sure if they've actually managed to make these changes, or what's actually happened. But I mean, I'm glad they've taken things into their own hands, and they're.
Is there any way I can read up on this, because I don't know about this at all. Also, is that Paulus in chat? Hello. Sorry, I've just noticed one of the AOC people.
Yes, it was.
And me, Jennie. Okay. Thank you. I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation. I don't know what the upshot of that is, but I am trying to. I've formed an informal data club with with a few different. It's interesting. This seems to be a time for doing surveys. There've been a few different surveys of comics creators that have been done around the world. There's a group in Italy, and there's an Epstein in Ohio, Omaha, Orlando, a place that begins with O in the States. But anyway, yeah. So it's just an interesting kind of. It's interesting. There's this sort of a sea change in creators stepping back and saying, actually, no, this is not healthy, and I'm not. No more.
No.
I was wondering if. So between us, our fledgling organisations, we're covering like the sort of the information and the transparency kind of areas of comics, and to some extent lobbying as well through the Society of Authors. And I was wondering if you felt there were areas that we should, well, I don't think there's areas that we should be covering, but I was wondering about, basically I've been thinking about like a backbone organisation that exists in some different areas of the arts and elsewhere. So we don't really have like a big central body which can channel funding from the Arts Council or whoever to distribute people. So, for example, like if there was a pot of money which publishers could go to, small publishers under a certain size could go to say, this festival would like to have my author as a guest. Can you pay for the travel? Because that's prohibitive of a lot of smaller publishers, and it means that a lot of smaller creators, or not smaller creators, but creators of smaller publishers who are, I think by and large, like the gatekeeping is less gatekept, so it's more, I suppose it's more vibrant and more like less like popular kind of thing. It would be a really great platform anyway to be able to get people to different arts festivals and literary festivals and comics festivals. Like something like that. There's no sort of a central body to be able to distribute funding in certain ways, or for prizes, or to do like match funding for people who want to apply for Arts Council funding for their own projects. I was wondering wondering your thoughts about that, if that's the thing that you feel like we are lacking greatly, or if that's something that is unnecessary, or.
Well, I think because it's something that hasn't really existed in comics in the UK before, it's the sort of thing that, it's a bit like showing dog a magic trick. It's a what? Free money? A what now? So yes, it sounds wonderful. I think, yes, that sounds great. It also sounds like a full-time job.
Yeah.
I'm very aware that Jennie, you're doing you're organising the AoCCC in your spare time.
Yeah. So basically all of us founders and everyone who's working there, everyone who's a helper and admins and stuff, this is all voluntary. So there is no we don't have any funding or anything. And also I am personally working full-time in the industry, trying to keep the lights on. And Fef has just gone to a new job, working full-time as well. So like this is very much something that we're kind of delegating a lot to a lot of other people as well to keep everything running smoothly, because we can't be around all of the time. It would be amazing to have like a paid member of staff who was like taking care of the AoCCC. That would be incredible. But like it's just such a amazing thing that I just don't think that it's even possible to think about as a reality.
But
why? Like Dan said, it's just like it's like showing us a magic trick, showing my dog a magic trick. It's just like I don't understand.
Why would the Arts Council not fund something like that? Is that a thing? Is that possible?
I honestly.
So think how much money goes to the Royal Opera House.
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't properly like investigated all of that. Maybe Fef has
that in itself is a full-time job.
Okay, Fef's saying that we're global rather than UK based. So I'm not sure if they're open to it. Yeah, that's a really good point, because we are international. Because we do want to keep, we want to keep making sure that people from everywhere can join us. It becomes,
the application process is also a beast.
Is a beast, yes.
I've got some connections. I'll have a conversation or two.
Oh, look at you.
Very nice.
Mr.
The applicants are a nightmare, Chloe says. Okay, good to know.
Horrifying. But there's money at the end. But horrifying. Because we with the Society of Authors, we have our meetings and we make our suggestions and our plans and things, but it's actually it's the actual employees of the Society of Authors who are lumbered with our wishes.
Okay.
Just send them away to do the hard work.
It's
quite nice.
Yeah. And they're very nice about it. Obviously, they're very nice people. They're very good people, but it's not like it's sort of being done around other broader Society of Authors work. And there's no. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. We're sort of slightly removed from like making things happen, which is probably for the best sometimes. I think. Our mad hopes and dreams.
I think a sort of wider comics advocacy body would be excellent, and sort of thinking about, when you have book fairs in the wider publishing industry, having those grants so that comics creators can be part of those schedules and things like that, and kind of looking, it can feel like a pipe dream, but I think that's again because comics just is such a devalued thing. Like, there are funds for authors to go places. There is money going in these areas. So yeah, I'm team luxury budgets for comics. Let's see.
That sounds incredible to me.
He wants to help write that application. And it's difficult, but there are these opportunities in the wider publishing sector. I don't see why comics shouldn't be part of those conversations and shouldn't be part of those budgets and shouldn't be something that when it comes across a funding body's desk, they go, yeah, comics are great. Yep, I think that's excellent.
And they keep talking about funding more comics things. There's a real, I think there's an interest now in public funding where there wasn't maybe 5, 10, 15 years, like, in the before times. But I think it's just, it would make, because of the application process, because of how elaborate they all are, it would be great if there was a central body that could speed these things along. Like you wouldn't want to make an Arts Council application for a trip to a festival across the country, just for that. You do it for like a huge project. And also
all the things I'm seeing in chat seems to be very UK focused about how to get the funding, which is just like one of those things where whenever we're talking about the AoCCC, that's the first hurdle, is that like I think we talked, like when we first started, we were just like, oh, in the future, we would love if we could, again, just thinking of dreams here, we would love to be able to actually offer legal advice. Obviously, right now, we can't offer legal advice. If you want
it just means that you have to make it up.
Yeah, if you want actual legal advice, it all depends on like where you are and all that stuff. And if you're in the UK, we would basically be saying, CCN is for you, and we would be showing you where you could get the actual professional legal advice. But yeah, we were like talking about how it would be amazing to get some kind of legal advice for the AoCCC, that people could then literally come in and just get essentially like free help, and that would be great as well. But like just doing that and being international, like I don't know how that would work, because the laws are different everywhere. And it's just like, that's just the first hurdle. So that's why I feel like we want to kind of start branching out, like Paulus said. I'm probably mispronouncing your name, I'm so sorry. That like we can sort of start branching out into like maybe France, or you said Italy as well. Like this is sort of links between different, like similarly aimed organizations in different countries. Yeah, so for example, if you were to join the AoCCC and you're like, maybe you're not based in the UK, maybe you're based in I don't know, Germany or something. And then as we get more people in who also are based in Germany, then we can make them, you know, have a chat with one another, and then we could actually get more localized help, if that makes sense. Because right now it is, because most of the people in the AoCCC right now, unless I am getting this wrong, because it's on the spot, but I believe most of the people currently are either based in the UK or the US or in Europe. So like, you know, and we have some people in India as well. And but yeah, so there's just those difficult things because we are like over the borders everywhere. Like, how do you even begin to do the money thing with that? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, presumably if you had a member of staff who was based in the UK,
regional offices.
Yeah, I guess we could have a regional office in the UK.
That's the kind of thing I just don't.
I would want to talk to someone who knows more about how this works, because I don't feel confident enough to know all of that stuff. So we would have to consult people who actually know how this works.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe Seth knows a lot more on that kind of stuff than I do. If you want to talk about like gutter stuff, if you want to talk butts,
that's later in my
class. On the internet, online platforms, the Wild West, like
cat bums,
I'm here. But like
in
so I mean, I guess if there was I think the other question is if there was some sort of just sort of highlighting areas where there could be more potentially. The other question is, do we have like a shared, do we have sort of enough shared values in comics for this to be a thing? I mean, because we're quite a disparate set of people, you know, working in different areas. We're quite a broad church, comics.
Yeah.
For something like a backbone organization or something, you know, something that would.
Well, you'd hope that because it would be communal benefits that people would be involved and all support it, because we would all stand to benefit from a fairer industry and an organisation that would help people get funding and do things and make books and go places. So I would say that the sort of benefits of that in theory should entice all folks. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. I was just wondering if there was I would assume so, like something that if the main goal was to like raise the profile of comics, something as broad as that, that would be potentially.
I mean, you can't be against that.
Can't be against
people
that.
Post in the chat if you hate comics and profile raising,
like,
please give us a sentence.
Like I think pretty much everyone can agree that like making things better for people who make comics is a good thing, and making comics been like pushing it up a bit as an industry is a good thing. And then all the other bits we might be disagreeing on, but I think just those fundamental things, otherwise you're just self-sabotaging, like
which we do a lot in comics, to be fair.
I mean, we're professionals when it comes to self-sabotage, don't get me wrong. That's why I spot it immediately, because I do it on a daily basis.
I wonder if we should take some questions from the audience. Does anybody? I've not really been keeping up with the chat apart from that comment earlier. Was there?
Is it question time?
Question time.
We can definitely do some questions. I've actually got a question. I've got a question for you, if you like. I thought there was Nyla made a really interesting point about how comics aren't valued, and like just the kind of value of comics as an art form, which obviously I think they are. I'm a firm believer that they should be. But I'm curious, like, hear people's thoughts about the value of comics and the kind of value we put upon ourselves as artists. So I've definitely experienced, firstly myself, and mostly with most of my friends who make comics. We don't do it for a full-time job. We have a full-time job and the comics are kind of an additional bonus thing, to the point of it almost kind of feels like a made-up job that we've just decided, I'm going to become a comic artist, and we start doing it, and so therefore we are. And I do wonder if like people kind of think that there is we sort of automatically devalue ourselves, maybe not even consciously, but in a kind of subconscious way, that we kind of almost don't take comics seriously enough, or the way that we treat them, the way that we talk about them, even within the comics industry. I think sometimes it still is kind of, whether it's being like modest, saying like, oh, I just do it on the side as like a little fun hobby, or obviously it's not everyone does treat it as a full-time job. I like I say, I've got a full-time job, but I still like to think I take it fairly seriously, to the point of I've been drawing comics during this talk and organized a month-long comic event. But do you think that like part of the problem about the perceived value of comics in society at large is because the actual industry itself and comic artists don't value themselves highly enough? And what can we do to make people kind of think more highly of themselves, or make people realize that comics are just as valid as other art forms? That's quite a big question.
Oh God, that just hurts me in my soul, because it's true. It's just like, yeah, because we don't value our own work, so why should anyone else? Yeah, I feel like that's completely true as well. And I do remember, because I went from illustration over to comics, and in illustration, I can only speak from my own experiences, obviously, but even in illustration, people tend to really not have a great self-confidence in their work and stuff. But I felt like going from illustration to comics, it was just like going like off the cliff in terms of like appreciation for your own work. And it's almost like you can't take yourself too seriously or anything, because it's kind of a bit pretentious if you do. So it's almost also, people look at you weird if you say that, you make comics and like it's your thing, and it's like it's cool actually, and people are just like, all right, that's a bit weird. So yeah, I don't know how to fix that, other than to try to help creators to realize that actually we're pretty good at what we do actually.
I mean, yeah, I think obviously everyone who draws comics is good. There's no right or wrong way to make comics, and everyone here makes very good comics. But I guess, yeah, in terms of, do you think there are things that the AoCCC or the like CNN can do to actually almost to help boost the self-esteem of people who make comics? Is that something that is like needed, or?
I think it's definitely needed.
It's needed.
That was a massive thing when I worked on Full Colour, was actually the confidence building of people. When you're running a mentorship scheme, you will have people who come in who are absolutely excellent at what they do and are like, well, what am I doing wrong? And when you realize that these people have been undervalued, like the confidence building, I think, is a huge part of it. I also think it's a hugely cyclical issue that, like, I mean, you could start with confidence, but you're going to get absolutely pummeled by an industry that maybe isn't paying fair rates, isn't seeing your work valued. You're not seeing comics out and about in the wild and things like that. But actually, when you look, like, I can think of so many people in industry that are huge inspirations. And I can think of the fact, like, there's comics get adapted into films, and you see them everywhere, or TV shows. Like the last film I saw in the cinema before lockdown happened was Days of the Bagnalled Summer, which is based on a comic. I think that there is so much comics out in the world and so much comics influence in the world. And when I was at uni, a big thing that we talked about was the idea that maybe comics started in Scotland with the Glasgow Looking Glass, and this idea that it is actually such a big part of our history, it's a huge part of our culture, and it has been undervalued. But I think if we all sat down and wrote a list that, like, you would fill a side of A4 really quickly with the value, the impact, the importance of comics in your daily life, and to remind yourself of that comics are huge. We're actually like a total juggernaut. But it feels like we're getting bullied a little bit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, have you
heard of Sarah McIntyre's? I think it's called Pictures Mean Business.
Yeah.
So like Sarah McIntyre is an incredible children's book illustrator, and she has been fighting for I don't know how long now to basically get basic credit for drawing things, because for some reason when you are doing pictures, be it illustrations or comics, that's kind of not taken as seriously as the written word for some reason. So like that whole campaign, which I think is ongoing, it's all about literally giving illustrators credit and payment for the pictures that they are making, because it's actually a job. Because I think a lot of people who are not in it all of the time they kind of look, if they look in, they just see people drawing something and they don't quite understand that it is work, because it just looks in a cool way. It kind of looks like magic for people who don't do art, because they're just like, wow, this is so effortless. And then you don't realize that it took like 10 years of like pain to get to the point where you can do a line like that. So yeah, I think trying to make the general public more aware that just illustration and comics in general is actually difficult and great, and should be given a bit of more respect than it currently does, is good.
I think maybe following on from that, something that might do both, that might highlight comics to more readers, and also give us as comics creators more of a sense of like pride in our work, because I it's terrible. I was doing the same thing when I was UK Comics Laureate. I was going around saying, yeah, Comics Laureate, yeah, there is one. Oh, I know, it's me. Oh, silly. And I was not, every time I was just like sort of like trying to like dismiss this thing, because I just that's how we are in comics. But anyway, I feel like something that might be a small but useful thing to implement, and maybe this is something that both our organizations could do, would be to find and highlight every single competition which is open to books and to arts, and just every sort of cultural competition which might potentially be entered by somebody making comics, and put it in one place, in like a central hub where you can find it, and we could just you can bombard these competitions, for want of a better word, with comics, and eventually we'll break through and we'll get these prizes, and people will become aware of us. And also, I mean, I don't think you can't look at yourself and think, I only do comics, when you realize, oh no, but this comic also won the Costa Prize, this comic won the Booker Prize. You can't dismiss yourself when yourself and your peers are winning prestigious prizes, and there's no reason that we can't, because we have the content. I think maybe we're just, quite often we don't put ourselves forwards for these things because we feel like we're not worthy, like we're never going to win. But I think there's no reason that we can't, for competitions that we're eligible for. And so it just takes a bit of legwork to find out, I think, which competitions would take comics. Not any with a word count, I've discovered. Some are quite particular about their word count. Those dagger.
A picture's worth 1,000 words, so you could just do like
3
comics
pictures.
Should be eligible for all of these. It's actually 3 pictures. That's an essay.
Yeah. Sorry. So it's just something that we could potentially implement. I'll bring it up in the next meeting.
In a lot of the teaching and the mentoring that I do, I feel like a huge portion of it is just going, yeah, that's right, you did this thing, it's really good. Yeah, no, I know it looks different from what someone else did, but that's a good thing. Like, if it looks the same as what someone else did, you kind of done it wrong. It's got to be your own thing. And I feel like so much of what I do in teaching is just trying to like be a cheerleader, like big slap on the back, like, hey, well done, like this is really, really good. No, honestly, it is. No, I don't. No, it's not just because I'm being paid to say it. No, I'll tell you if it was rubbish. Like, honestly, like, and trying to sort of fight against that imposter syndrome, and like, yeah, but you do hate it really though, don't you? Like, no, I like it. Christ, I like it. Like, tell me I'm bad, Dan. Tell me I'm awful. Fine, I will. Your sense of self-esteem is terrible. The comics are lovely though. Like, it really is, like, I think it's sort of baked into the characteristics of a cartoonist. Like, I don't know if this is just people who like drawing and telling stories just feel this way. I don't know what it is. But I don't know if there's a fix. I don't know if there's a fix.
I mean, I think inherently all artists, they're always their own worst critics, obviously. Like I was doing a workshop thing once where I asked everyone in the room to put up their hand if they thought they were good at drawing. Not a single person put their hand up. And I asked everyone to put their hand up if they thought the person on their left was good at drawing, and everyone's hands just shot immediately straight up. So we're kind of the biggest champions of each other, but not of ourselves. And I think that's probably like a barrier for a lot of people, I think, in terms of if you're not taking it, if you don't think that you are good enough to make comics because of imposter syndrome or whatever, then you're inevitably not going to take it seriously enough to actually to help. The more everyone takes it seriously, the more it kind of benefits everybody else, and it starts to get treated more seriously by like the Arts Council or things. Although the Arts Council did give me funding for the Comic and Zine Fair, and paying a lovely panelist to say. But I think that's another thing of like the Arts Council, there is funding for comics. I think a lot of people kind of expect to not get it, but Hannah was great, in fact, and give me lots of advice in saying like actually they are quite keen to fund projects that aren't like the kind of traditional like standard arts, the more common artistic practices, that they do want to branch out. They want to kind of show how diverse art is in the UK. So I would highly recommend anyone who wants to apply for funding just to go ahead and do it. Has anyone else got a question? If you have a question, feel free to turn on your video and your mic and ask away, or if you want to put it in the chat, I can read it out on your behalf.
One of the other reasons why I keep on telling people whenever I'm on Twitch as well, like, look, yes, this is my job. I am a comic book creator, is because people literally don't think that it is a job. So I feel like that's why I keep on always hammering down that, look, I am a full-time comic creator, and people might get a bit bored of me saying that, but there are lots of people who also in the background kind of go, oh, that's a thing. You can actually do a thing as a job? Wow. Because like I didn't know that was a thing when I grew up. We didn't even realize that illustration was a job. So these things are changing.
So that was actually one question that was put in the chat earlier on. I have to scroll up a little bit and find it. So what are your thoughts on indie creator finding cheap collaborators on exploitative sites like Fiverr? Do you think that's something do you have any thoughts on that as something that kind of helps the industry or hinders the industry?
Fiverr is an abomination. Is that the one where you can find people to do a job for pennies?
Yeah, it's like a reverse eBay. Like instead of like paying like more and more, it's like I'll do it for less.
Oh God, is it like people per hour? Because I was on people per hour when I first went off, when I first graduated from uni. I'm guessing it's a similar thing. I haven't been on Fiverr, but literally the only place I ever got scammed properly was people per hour. I would not recommend. Probably Fiverr is similar, where you basically do something for like what, 20 quid or something. Don't do it.
Fiverr.
For a Fiverr. I didn't want to say, because please, you should not be working for a Fiverr. You should not. You're worth more than a Fiverr. Like, I love you. Don't do this to yourself. Stop hurting yourself, please.
I think it's interesting. I definitely got some friends who do like they write scripts just kind of in their own time, and then to get them produced, they obviously have to work with an artist. I know some people who will just basically find the cheapest artist that they can, because it's everything that they do is like, a pitch to basically to try to get a deal further down the road, someone to pick up their work. So I think do you guys know places where creators can meet each other, where they can find collaborators that aren't exploitative like Fiverr is?
There should be like a hub or something for that, because I genuinely don't. I get asked this a lot, and I genuinely don't know anywhere. I just point people to comics festivals and say, look around you, see people whose work you like, approach them, make your overtures.
Fef says that there are a few places like Art Corgi. I have not heard of Art Corgi. Does anyone know what Art Corgi is? See, I feel like this is really Fef's domain. It's like a commission website.
For comics?
I don't know what that is. I'm gonna.
Thought Bubble always talks about doing speed dating to get writers and artists to meet. I think that's a great idea.
That's a double thumbs up from me.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then artists will realize their own value.
Yeah, Chloe, do it. Sorry, but you gotta, and now you've got to organize.
You have to do it now. Soft light.
Do it.
Fizzy drinks.
Amazing. Do it. Please do it.
We have genuinely been talking about it for years, and it just seems logistically quite a hard thing to do. But obviously, seems like there's a need for it.
What do you need? Yes. You need tables, a bell. I've not done speed.
Does a bell make it seedy?
Some like a lamp with a sort of a red handkerchief.
A lava lamp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, like Alessandro says as well, that it's no middleman taking a profit then. That's
the point.
That would be nice.
Yeah, and how many other situations are you in where you've got 500 creators in the same building?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you could have on hand. You could have boilerplate contracts that are ready to go. That are legally,
my God!
Cover both creators and say, here you go, fill in your details.
Can I have a lawyer sat there?
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and then maybe because they have boilerplate contracts, that might be the first time someone is actually holding a contract, and they get to see their first experience with a contract being one that's not shit.
Yeah, but they shouldn't sign it there and then, because you should
No. You slow down with that. But you look at it and you go, oh,
you look at it, you take it
this
away.
is a contract. Interesting. Oh, I love that.
There you go, Chloe, you have to do it now.
Go on, do it.
Give me like
do it. Yeah, pressure. Do it. Yeah, pressure.
Honestly,
you've got a month and a half. Yeah, you know.
Oh yeah, loads of time. That's Martha's idea, our assistant director. I can't take credit. I'll make her do it.
Oh, good.
Nice.
I feel like I should put before, because I'm getting to the end. I feel like I should put. I feel like I should put a link to the Comics Creators Network on here, but I haven't got one to hand. And now just ground that conversation to a halt while I realise that.
Oh, I will cleanse the room. If we're coming to the end, I feel like I need to cleanse the room with our pupper. Give me a second. While you're doing that.
We have a room cleansing pupper.
Yes, we do. Hold on.
Links to the Comic Creators Network in the chat there. Thank you, Rachel.
Oh, thank you, Rachel.
And there's you get I think 20% off. There's a special code that you get 20% off membership.
Am I right in thinking that's Comics 20?
It is. I think, unless it's changed. Yeah, I think you're right.
This better be a good dog.
Pressure is on now.
I could do with a cleanse.
Hey, it's a strong dog so far.
What's the dog called?
That was a bit shrill.
Boy.
I'm so excited.
Okay, wait. Okay, now I can hear you again. So apologies if you said something to me.
It was just me screaming about and having a tie. That's all.
There we go.
Oh,
see,
so formal.
That is what you get when you have professionals. Yeah, there you go.
There's a dog that's been to business school.
That's the
He
secret.
knows
dog
about
want to
contracts.
advocate.
He will read your contracts.
If we want to take ourselves more seriously, we just had to start wearing more ties, and you immediately look very sophisticated. So maybe that's what we should all do in the comic industry.
Yes.
Look at us in our t-shirts, so casual.
Yeah, well, we look like
suits.
slobs compared to this.
I haven't even tucked my shirt in today.
I'm not even wearing trousers.
In the similar style, though, I'd noticed. It's the berry style.
It's the Comics Creators uniform.
I was going to say it's the berry
A t-shirt and a shirt and a hat. Oh no.
Yeah. It's like a tea towel drawer.
Yeah. Oh, good boy. I know. I'm out of sausage now, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
What kind of smut peddler are you?
Oh God. Okay.
Really
I think
happy with that little
he's had
joke at the
enough
end
of
there.
your shenanigans. He's off now.
Well,
Brilliant.
Well, maybe it's
I
not.
think we're all very cleansed.
He's turned his back.
If anybody wants to contact any of us and ask about our various organisations, we're approachable. We're very approachable, right? We're approachable.
Oh yeah. Yes, please talk to us.
Do it.
The more we all talk to each other, the stronger the comics industry is.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember that every time you make your community stronger, Margaret Thatcher dies a little bit more.
Good boy.
Dies a bit harder.
Dies a bit harder.
Oh my God.
Good. This has been recorded. Good.
This is being recorded.
Yeah.
I can't
fix it.
imagine one single Margaret Thatcher fan working in comics. Surely not.
I think we're probably.
I think we're going to find out.
But,
we will find out.
Please
Yeah.
contact me at Danberry
and yeah, do check out the comic fair. There's lots of excellent creators, lots of good books on sale, and thank you again to Hannah, Dan, Nyla, and Jennie. And yeah, hopefully see everyone again soon.
Do we unmute everyone and have a big old group hug?
We can all. I mean, everyone actually has to unmute themselves, but people, by all means, feel free to unmute yourself and applaud.
Applaud?
No.
God, don't applaud.
You've got to take comics seriously.
So seriously. No, thank you for the charts and stuff. It has been good fun.
Yay. Thank you all so
Thank you so
much.
much.
And yeah, you're more than welcome to just chat with us whenever you want to. I live online, sadly, so I'm available if you want to talk. I'm also on Twitch personally if you want to chat live. Just got to get that plug in.
Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. And hopefully see you all in the next one. And if not, enjoy your weekends. Go and read more comics.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye.